Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Krishna, Hare
This one's not.
This is not good.
This one over there.
Or it's not connected.
This one what?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all for attending today's home program. A big thank you to Shri Manmohan Shri Jagannath Prabhu and Lakshmi, Madhumayi Shri Lakshmi Devi Dasi and Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu hosting today's program. And we are very fortunate to welcome His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu to Phoenix one more time. That's okay. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu does not need an introduction, but we all know that he's a senior disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and he's an international speaker. He travels all around the world giving wonderful classes. He's also authored 27 books, and he was one of the first devotees who started the daily meditation on Bhagavad Gita. And he's reached, I think, over 4,000 postings as of now. And Prabhu also is a co-author and participates in writing for the Back to Godhead magazine that we all are familiar with. It's a global magazine. And he's also a mentor and a life coach. Without taking much of his speaking time, I'm going to stop here. But once again, a warm welcome to His Grace Chaitanya Prabhu, Charan Prabhu to Phoenix. Hare Krishna. Thank you all.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we are going to discuss about.
Prabhu, I'll explain.
Okay.
Yeah, you can start.
I was just saying that today we are going to discuss probably one of the most important topic for all grihasthas. This is one question everyone asks. No one is exception. Can anyone guess what can be that question? Everyone. There's not a single exception.
How to balance material?
How to balance material and spiritual life? How to balance my job? How to balance my family? How to balance my spiritual life? How to balance? This is Prabhuji is going to anyway, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand your words and thereby align our will with your will and fulfill the glorious destiny that you have for each one of us. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm feeling as if I'm addressing an invisible audience over here. Maybe I'll turn around like this. Majority of the audience is here. So, you have been given a copy of a book. This is my latest book on Bhagavad Gita. It is prayers inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, that's better. So, for me, the Gita's verses, among all the texts, all the sacred texts in our tradition, I have connected most with the Bhagavad Gita. And the Gita's verses are not just sources of wisdom for me. They are personal friends. And just like if you have a close friend, you want to know more and more about that friend. And we try to meet with that friend or interact with that friend in different contexts. So I have been writing on the Gita every day for the last almost 15 years now. And I was feeling that I was doing a lot of analysis of the Gita, but I was feeling that the devotional dimension of the Gita was not being highlighted. And when I read Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada's Gita, I feel the devotional dimension is very significant. So when I was reading the Mukundamala Stotra, which is a poetic composition by Kulashekar Maharaj, I noticed one prayer over there which seemed to me to be like a prayer that is inspired by a verse of the Bhagavad Gita. So 12.7 in the Bhagavad Gita says, Teshamaham samuddharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mayaveshita chetasam. So Krishna is saying that for those souls who fix their mind on me, I elevate them, I deliver them from the ocean of material existence. And I do that swiftly, without delay. And Kulashekar Maharaj is praying, Samsara sagar nimagnamananta deenam uddharatum arasi hare purushottamosmi. So he's saying that, my dear Lord, in this unending ocean of material existence, I am struggling and drowning. It behooves you, O Lord, to deliver me from this ocean. So, arhasi, it behooves me. Why is he saying it behooves me? So he's saying the Lord has promised, I will deliver you, and therefore he is saying, my dear Lord, please deliver me. So it's a prayer inspired by a verse of the Bhagavad Gita. So I took that approach, and in this book there are, this is based on 122 prayers inspired by the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So each verse has a picture of a deity of Krishna, then one-line summary prayer, which is like a spiritual devotional affirmation, then the Gita verse, then it's translated to English poetry, and then there is a prayer reflection based on that verse. So let's read this 1.10 today. You can repeat after me. My dear Lord, let my plans not blind me to your plan. Let's recite the verse. Those of you comfortable, you can repeat. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma bhirakshitam paryaptam tvaidame tesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. Our forces vast beyond all scale, guarded by Bhishma, will not fail. Theirs guarded by Bhima remain confined. For failure they are surely destined. This is 1.10 from the Bhagavad Gita. Those of you who have the book, you can go to page 20 and 21 in the book. So, would anyone like to read the first paragraph?
My dear Lord, it is so easy to be meticulous in not missing a single thing at the material level, while simultaneously missing the most important thing at the spiritual level, which is you, O Lord.
Yes. So, this is where Duryodhan has calculated, he has assessed. And he has said, these are the powerful warriors on their side, these are the powerful warriors on our side. And based on that, he is concluding that we are stronger. But there is one person he has missed out. Who is that? Krishna. So in all his calculations, he has neglected Krishna. Now when I was introduced to Bhakti about 30 years ago, I started talking about it to all my friends, relatives, acquaintances. So one of my uncles, he told me, I have a very good relationship with God. I said, really? I had never seen him go to a temple or even read any sacred book or even talk about anything spiritual. So I said, so what is the nature of this relationship? I asked him. He says, mutual non-interference. He is happy. I am happy here. He is happy there. So, for many people, God is like a non-entity for them. Maybe he exists, maybe he doesn't exist, but he doesn't matter to me. That is the basic conception that many people have. So with this conception, when we function basically life becomes reduced to two main things. If this is life and we are in this world, and our life basically becomes essentially two things: what is done by us and what is done to us. What is done to us. So we may feel that, oh, this person did not treat me well, that person was rude to me, oh, that time one bad thing happened to me, that time that bad thing happened to me. So our whole life story becomes reduced to those two things: what is done to us and what is done by us. And within this vision, basically sooner or later we start succumbing to negativity. Why? Because we start feeling sooner or later that what is done to us is wrong. And because of this, a certain level of resentment starts coming in. Why did this person do this to me? Why did this person treat me like this? Why did this happen? And it can be in many different degrees. Okay, in my childhood, my parents compared me to with this sibling or this neighborhood kid, and that comparison affected me negatively, or this happened, I was bullied over here, or that happened. So many things have happened to all of us, and we start feeling resentment. And the world has not treated us right. Now, sometimes it happens that we may feel that maybe I am not good enough. And the world is a challenging place, and maybe I made a mess of things. Maybe I am not smart enough. Maybe I am not talented enough. And that leads us to feeling insecure. So insecurity and resentment, these are the two prominent emotions that dominate and even define a godless consciousness. These can come in many different variants. In general, resentment is more when we have a very high ego. So when the ego is very strong, we feel others have done wrong to me. But when a person is already insecure, then what happens? Then we start feeling, okay, maybe I am not good enough. And with this vision, when we function, whatever we do, it just increases the negativity within us. So basically, we may start practicing bhakti. We may start chanting the holy names. We may start coming in the association of devotees. However, our worldview may still remain the same. This person treated me like this, that person did like that, this thing happened over here, oh, I made a mistake over here. And when this happens, then we may think, okay, I am trying to practice spiritual life, I have to balance my job, I have to balance my career, I have to do this, I have to do that. But all of it, I am all alone trying to juggle all these balls together. So basically, spiritual life, or especially bhakti, is not just another to do in our life. I have so many things to do in my life. I have my job, I have my family, I have my health, I have this, that. And bhakti is one more to do. No, that is a very, very incomplete understanding. Bhakti is actually another way to do. It is not another to do, it is another way to do. It is a completely different vision of living. And unless that worldview shift happens, and we may be doing devotional activities, but we are doing devotional activities within more or less a godless worldview. Now what does that mean exactly? What is another way to do means? That yes, it is true that in our life there are things done by us and there are things done to us. But above us all is Krishna. And whatever happens in our life, whether it is done by us or whether it is done to us, in some way, all of it is within God's plan. It is God filtered. It is not necessarily what Krishna wanted us to do. So if we made a mistake and we made a mess of things, it is not that Krishna wanted us to make a mistake. If somebody mistreated us, somebody abused us, it's not that Krishna wanted us to do that, wanted that person to do that. But whoever has done, it is within the ambit of Krishna's higher plan. And whatever is going on in our life, it is in that sense God filtered. When I say filtered, it means what? That sometimes pure water is coming through the filter and then pure water passes as it is. And sometimes impure water is coming. Now all impurities may not be removed, but a certain level of impurities are removed. So if the original water is pure, completely that water will come through. If the original water is impure, then certain level of impurities will be removed and then the water will go through. So when we say God filtered, what does it mean? That at the most positive level, whatever it's like pure water, it is God's intention. That Krishna wanted it to happen and Krishna did it through someone. But at the minimum level, when I say negative level, means that this is upadrashta anumantacha. It is God sanctioned or God permitted. That we can't even make mistakes unless Krishna allows us to make mistakes. What do I mean by that? That sometimes say in a bank there is a report that a huge amount of cash has come or money has come, gold treasury or whatever. 10 people decide to rob the bank. Now, one thief decides to go and rob the bank, and while they're going along, their car has a flat. And they don't reach there only. So, basically, whether somebody wants to do a good thing or a bad thing, there are many factors beyond their control by which they may be stopped. So, nothing happens unless at the very least it is permitted by Krishna. Now, is it wanted by Krishna? That depends. Now, did Krishna want that Dushasan disrobe Draupadi? No, Krishna didn't want that. Dushasan wanted that. Duryodhana wanted that. But Krishna allowed that to happen. So, the reason I am talking about this is that whenever we are trying to think about our life and how we function in our life, it's important to have this bigger picture. That we are not all alone struggling. Oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, and how will I manage this and how will I manage that? I have 100 things to do, how will I manage those things? This bigger picture, that we may have our plans, but Krishna has a bigger plan. And with this foundational understanding, then we can have a certain level of basic security in our life. A basic level of security with which we can function. So, now when I am talking about balance, we are talking about how to balance material and spiritual life. So, the perspective I am going to take towards balance is that it is not that we all alone are struggling to balance various things. If, say, suddenly there is a crisis in our job, and we also have so many services to do, and we have this and that, it is not that Krishna does not know what is happening. Krishna knows what is going on in our life. So, Krishna knows what all challenges we are facing. And Krishna knows and Krishna cares. Now, that does not necessarily mean that those challenges have come because Krishna wanted those challenges to come. That's not the same thing. Now, why am I emphasizing this? When we talk about difficulties in life, so I will talk about this in a particular approach I'll take. We'll have 3 sessions. today, tomorrow, and day after. And each of the sessions, I'll talk about one aspect of balancing our life. So the first thing I'll talk about today is that when we face problems in life, problems could be I have too many things to do in my life. That could be one problem. It's about balance, or one aspect of my life is become very, very difficult. So how do we deal with it? I'll be talking about three things: problems. How do we understand problems in our life? That's what I'll talk today. Then tomorrow I'll talk about purpose. Tomorrow morning we'll have a session. I'll talk about purpose. Now, how we can have a purpose in our life that helps us to move ahead positively. And then lastly, I'll talk about process. What do we do by which we can actually deal with problems? Deal with so in one sense, when I'm talking about balancing, this is not going to be a simple class, how much time you have, how much time you need for this. It's not a time management class. It is, we're going at a much deeper level. We need some philosophical reconceptualization. It's not that Krishna cares only for our spiritual life and Krishna does not care for our material life. No, Krishna cares for us in all aspects of our life. And Krishna wants our well-being in all aspects of our life. So Krishna wants us to be flourishing in every area of life, not just in one area. So who would like to read the next paragraph? Maybe any of the Vaishnavis?
When I make plans, even if those plans are for your service, I often get so caught in analyzing strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats at the material level that I forget or overlook the one factor that overrides all others, your supreme will.
Yes. So this is the same point, but I'm elaborating in a different way that there is everything that is happening is God filtered. And when it is God filtered, that means Krishna has some plan over there for us. It is not that we are all alone struggling in the world. So today when I talk about problems, when we face problems in life, I was few months, I've been in America for about 2 months now. So I was in Stanford, I was giving a talk, and there one person came. He introduced himself. He says, I'm studying interreligious studies. I study Christianity and Hinduism. So he said, I find that the Bhagavad Gita is such a pessimistic book that it just rejects all positivity in life. When it says this world is dukkhale, it just condemns all attempts at doing anything worthwhile in this life, in this world. So, is it such a pessimistic? Why is the Gita so pessimistic? So, I answered briefly to him, but I'll not go into the entire answer. But the key point is that while the Gita does say this world is dukkhale, but if you look at the flow of the Gita itself, at the start of the Gita, if you consider the Gita, at the start of the Gita, Arjuna is in distress, he is in tears. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam. Tears are brimming from his eyes. And then approximately in the middle of the Gita in 8.15, Krishna says, this dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So Arjuna is in tears, and Krishna tells Arjuna this world is a place of distress. Now Krishna could have completed the Gita over there. He said, that this world is a place of distress, you are in distress, therefore Bhagavad Gita is true. No. See, it's almost ironic that the book which says this world is a place of distress, what is the result of hearing that book? That Arjuna has no tears by the end. His tears go away. Arjuna has become confident. Nashto moha smriti labdha tat prasadan maya chuta sthitosmi gata sandeha. Sthitosmi, I become calm, I become composed. So if the Gita were as pessimistic as it is being talked over here, how would that message of pessimism lead to Arjuna losing his distress? So that's why when we talk about distress, the Gita gives us an analysis of how distress comes in life. And this particular framework that I'll talk about, this will help us understand when we face problems, where those problems are coming from. So, all of you can get an IAS degree here. What is IAS? IAS is basically, the Gita explains that distress that comes in our life, the dukkha that comes, it falls in three categories. One is the distress that is inevitable. So this is, for example, talked about in 13.9. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. That this is the distress that everyone is going to suffer in life. So this is like, say, somebody goes to the Himalayas and the Himalayas are cold. Anybody who goes to the Himalayas, they are going to experience the cold. So this is intrinsic to the world. It's inevitable. And when it's inevitable, what does Krishna say? Krishna says we learn to get used to it, accept it. Don't have an unrealistic hope that the distress will not come. But the second is, Krishna says this is distress that is avoidable. This distress he talks about in 5.22 in the Bhagavad Gita. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. So here he is telling that if somebody engages in unrestricted material pleasure, then that will lead to self-created distress. If somebody drinks alcohol and becomes an alcoholic, now people who are alcoholic, most often they deny that they are alcoholic. He says, I'm not an alcoholic. I just like to give exclusive attention to every bottle of alcohol that comes before me. So now if they drink, they become intoxicated, and then after that they get a disease. They lose their finances, they lose their reputation, now all kind of things happen. Now, was that inevitable distress? No, that is avoidable distress. So avoidable distress, Krishna says we need to use our intelligence. And by using our intelligence, what is the last line is that? What is that? Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonayavate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means these are wise people. And wise people learn to avoid this distress. So basically, this is first inevitable distress. We need to develop tolerance. Yeah, this is going to come. I cannot avoid it in my life. So I should learn to tolerate it. But the avoidable distress, we need to use our intelligence to avoid the distress. And then the third kind of distress, Krishna says, that is the distress that strengthens us. This is a strengthening distress. That means by going through this distress, we actually become better. He talks about this in 18.37 in the Bhagavad Gita. That is where he says that yattad agre vishamiva pariname amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. That which tastes like poison in the beginning will taste like nectar at the end. So, for example, if we come to a country where the language that's spoken is different, we learn that language. It's difficult initially. We mispronounce, we misremember, we make a mess. But then slowly when we go through that process, we learn the language, then it's like a whole universe of communication opens for us. If somebody is sick and the doctor tells them, take a strict treatment, follow a diet, do this exercise, they go through that, they recover health, and then life becomes so much better for them. Similarly, if our mind is constantly wandering and restless, then we learn to chant mantras. Nowadays, whenever I talk, I don't use the word chanting. I always use mantra chanting. Why? Because in the mainstream world, the word chanting is associated with slogans. People go on political rallies and chanting. chanting this, For example, pro-Palestinian people will chant from the ocean to the sea. And people will chant, whatever. So the word chanting has become almost entirely associated with political rallies and slogans being chanted in political rallies. So that's why whenever I talk about it, I use mantra chanting, not just chanting. So the idea is that when we learn mantra chanting, initially it's difficult. But by that our mind becomes purified. The vegas, the urges that are there, they decrease. And then with a calmer and clearer mind, such a better life opens for us. So there is a strengthening. And for this, we need, the English word Prabhupada uses, forbearance. Forbearance means, you could say, persistence, determination, resilience. So we need to go through the poison till we get to the nectar. So if you consider these three, if we get to IS, we become fit in our life. Through forbearance, intelligence and tolerance, we can learn to manage distress in our life. Distress will come in everyone's life. We cannot avoid it. But how we deal with distress, that is up to us. So now this is broadly a philosophical discussion, but we are going to focus on right now on the point of that how do we balance various aspects of our life. So when we are talking about balancing, there is the challenges, the troubles that come with balancing our life, they also fall in these three categories. All the troubles don't fall in the same category. What does that mean? That we only have 24 hours a day, and there is, sociologists are saying there's a new kind of poverty that has become almost universal. That is called as time poverty. Time poverty means what? That everybody feels that they have far more things to do than the amount of time they have to do it in. Like money poverty is, I want to buy so many things but I don't have enough money. So time poverty is, I have so many things to do, I don't have enough time to do it in. So yes, time poverty, we could say, is a fact of life. Everyone has lots of things to do. And so to some extent, you can say some balance is going to be, some aspect of the balance challenge is inevitable. Everybody will have this challenge. Now it is not just as devotees we have the challenge of balancing material and spiritual life. If somebody is not a devotee, still they have to balance. They have to balance their professional life and family life. People can go in one direction, people can just focus on their work and they become workaholics. So people talk about work-life balance. So everybody has the challenge of balance because everybody has lots of things to do in life. So some aspect of what we do is that it's inevitable. However, much of the challenge of balancing, when we talk about balance, some of the challenges it's inevitable, but that there is other aspect of it which is avoidable, which is self-created. Self-created means sometimes we ourselves do things which are unintelligent, to put it more politely, which are stupid. So, when I was doing college outreach, and now also I do it, but for the first 10 years of my brahmachari life, I was primarily focused on going to various colleges and doing some outreach over there. So we noticed a very curious phenomenon at that time. That mostly we were doing outreach to engineering students, and just before the exam there will be the preparatory leave. So in the preparatory leave, students, devotee students, who had just come to Bhakti maybe 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, they would suddenly fall in love with Shastra. That is, they would say, oh, all these studies is just mundane. Why study engineering? It is all temporary. Just let's read Shastra. And even the scripture that they would read would not be like philosophical books like Prabhupada books. They want to read maybe stories like Lilamrut, maybe Ramayana, Mahabharata. So, it was basically what they were doing was, they were looking for a shortcut. They're looking for a shortcut. Now, the problem with the shortcut is that the short end and the cut comes after that. Isn't it? So, yeah, then they would have trouble in their career afterwards. So, yes, there's a time for studying Shastra, but if we know that something is important at a particular time and we neglect it at that time, then there will be consequences of that. And we cannot avoid those consequences. So some of it is avoidable. So avoidable problems come because we neglect things. But we don't just neglect things, sometimes we rationalize. Now rationalize means what? We tell rational lies. When we rationalize, we tell rational lies. So there was this one boy, he was from IIT Kharagpur, he became interested in bhakti, and I used to go there regularly. So after 6 months, he said, he went to Mayapur for a youth camp, and he became very inspired, and he came and he said, talk with me. Other devotee also says, I want to become a brahmachari. I have to leave college, and I just want to become a brahmachari. So now what we do is, even if somebody wants to become a brahmachari, we'll talk about world rejection later. We tell people generally, you are a student right now, complete your studies, get a job, get some experience, settle your family's financial loans if they have any, provide some financial security for your parents, if you have sisters, get them married, and after that you can join. So that's what we told him. He said, he was not very convinced, but he went away. And after a week he came back to me. He said, I got a realization. He said, what is this? I said, what is it? He said, I was reading the Bhagavatam and I read the Bali Maharaj pastime. And I realized that I am like Bali Maharaj and you are like Shukracharya. He said, I want to surrender to Krishna and you are telling me don't surrender to Krishna. So therefore, I reject you. So I told him, please accept my humble obeisances. So now what happened? He left and he joined a temple in Mayapur. He stayed there for 5-6 months. You see, what happens is everything looks very attractive when it's new. But once you start doing it full time, once you start doing it seriously, it's not that easy. And he felt, this temple is difficult. Then he went to another temple. He tried to stay in another temple. And after 1 year, he came back and he said, I want to join IIT again. So somehow it was like a big mess over there, but fortunately it worked out. So what happens is sometimes we may unwisely neglect certain things, and that creates problems for us. And those problems are avoidable. So we'll talk about how to have a worldview by which we can balance various things. But the principle over here is that balancing is tough. But sometimes our actions may make it tougher than what it is necessary to be. Now the third is that some problems are strengthening problems. Okay. Some problems are strengthening problems. Now strengthening means what? That by learning how to balance, actually when we learn, we will grow. It is in learning how to balance various aspects of our life, there is spiritual growth. There's some conception that, okay, everything that I'm doing, my family, my job, all that is just a waste of time. Krishna Bhakti is the real thing. And everything else is just temporary. No? We look at that conception, but it is not that Krishna exists only in the temple or Krishna exists only in the altar. Krishna's jurisdiction extends over every walk of our life. And we can learn about Krishna and grow towards Krishna through various walks of our life. So through balancing also we can learn and grow. So in that sense, the challenge of balancing is something which is strengthening for us. It can be strengthening. And everybody has the challenge of balancing. If now, say somebody becomes a brahmachari, somebody becomes a sannyasi, somebody retires and they have no family or other obligations. Even they also have to still balance. Because there can be so many services you can do. There's so many holy places we can go to. Should we keep traveling to various holy places? Should we stay in one holy place? Should we stay in some other place and do some service? Take up some responsibility over there? Even if we want to, how much time should we spend in reading books? How much time should we chanting the holy names? How much time should we try to preach or distribute books? We will always have to balance. So this learning to balance will help us understand ourselves and understand how Krishna wants us to serve in the best way. So through the challenge of balancing, we can better understand the nature that Krishna has given us and the plan that Krishna has for us. Can we read the next paragraph? Who would like to read?
Protect me, my Lord, from this foolish mistake, which can easily degenerate into a fatal mistake. Let me never think that my service to you is by my might. If I become intoxicated by my power, even if I am looking at you, I won't be able to see you. I will fall under the illusion that material things are all the matter, especially when I am seeking to offer those things for your pleasure.
Yes. So I won't be able to see you even when I am looking at you. That's what happened to Duryodhan. He saw Krishna on the chariot of Arjuna, but Pashyan api na pashyati. He saw, but he did not see. Now, when we say that can happen to a materialistic person, but that can also happen to a devotee. Sometimes, we have a plan to do something and it doesn't work out. Something somebody disrupts something. And then we may go in front of the altar and we look at Krishna, but our mind is filled with so much resentment. Why did this person do like this? Why did this person do like that? And then we are looking at Krishna, we are beholding the deity form of Krishna, but we are not seeing Krishna at all. So, this can even happen for a devotee. So, when we talk about balancing, it is important to understand that this is a challenge, but we don't want to lose sight that ultimately it is Krishna who is in charge. And Krishna's plan for us is that we go through life and we come to him through life. So broadly, there are two conceptions of how we can go to Krishna. Now one is that we just leave the world and go to Krishna. The other is we go through the world to Krishna. Now to some extent, the Bhagavatam, not the entire Bhagavatam, but especially the story of Parikshit Maharaj, that is depicting this way. Leave the world and go to Krishna. On the other hand, the Gita, and specifically Arjuna, is depicting go through the world to Krishna. Now why the difference? This is where time, place, circumstance, Desha, Kala, Patra play a role. So if somebody has got a diagnosis of terminal cancers, then if they say, okay, you got 1 month to live, you have 3 months to live, I say, okay, I want to go and distribute books, I want to open a new center. He says, no need for that now. Now you go to some holy place, focus yourself on remembering Krishna. So Parikshit Maharaj didn't have a cancer, but he didn't have a terminal disease, but he got a terminal curse. And that time, he turned away from the world to go toward Krishna, to focus on Krishna exclusively. The same principle of bhakti is there, but for Arjuna, Krishna said, turn toward the world. You have a responsibility in the world. And through the world, through doing your service to me in this world, you will come to me. So in that sense, while both paths are perfectly valid, but specifically the example of Parikshit Maharaj is a rare situation, exceptional situation. The example of Arjuna is more standard. That yes, we are all going to die, but it is, we may die tomorrow, but we may also not die tomorrow. So we have roles and responsibilities in the world, and we need to execute those roles and responsibilities appropriately. Okay. So now, especially when we are functioning in life in this world, then how do we go ahead? So I said that Krishna has a plan for each one of us, and Krishna's plan includes the material dimension of our life. It is not that it excludes. So Krishna tells Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, you are a great archer, you arise and you fight. You arise and tasmat uttishta yasho labhasva jitva shatrun bhukshvarajyam samruddham mayai vaite nihatah purvameva nimitta matram bhavasavyasachi. Arjuna, arise and fight, conquer your enemies and rejoice in a flourishing kingdom. Your enemies are already destroyed by my plan. So Krishna is essentially telling Arjuna, go through the world, attain glory, and then you come to me. So at a philosophical level, it is that our spiritual life and our material life. So right now I am focusing on the understanding of the problem. Our spiritual life and material life, there is some level we need to separate it. But at another level, we need to understand that both are meant to take us toward Krishna. It is not that our material life is meant to take us away from Krishna. It can take us away from Krishna, no doubt. It's like somebody can go into the world and they can get trapped in the world only. They may not go toward Krishna. That is entirely possible. We don't want that to happen. But how does that not happen? So let's look at the next paragraph here. Who would like to read? Yes, please.
Through your words, you guide my eyes, my head, and my heart towards the things that matter more than matter itself. Bless me so that I can start all my endeavors by first remembering you and then doing all my material analysis in the light of divine awareness. It is you who will work through my material plans if they succeed, and it is you who can work beyond or even opposite to my plans. Let my heart stay fixed on you, O Lord, and not on my plans.
Yes. So, Krishna can work through our plans, but Krishna can work independently of our plans also. Krishna can work beyond our plans also, opposite to our plans also. So, for a devotee, when we look at our material life and our spiritual life, so we can have 4 quadrants. We have our material growth. Material growth could mean that we grow financially, we grow in popularity, we grow in influence, our family does very well. So that's material growth. There are various aspects of that. And then there is spiritual growth. So now there are 4 quadrants that are possible over here. That there is material growth but no spiritual growth. There is neither material growth nor spiritual growth. There is spiritual growth but not material growth. And there is both material and spiritual growth. Now, when I just talk about this particular diagram, going through this world with Krishna, and Krishna is telling Arjuna that arise and attain victory. So which quadrant is Krishna talking about over here? 4th quadrant, yes. So now, we all would like to be in the 4th quadrant, isn't it? That everybody, those of us who want to practice bhakti, we would like to be in the 4th quadrant. Now, if you see, if a devotee is in this 4th quadrant, a devotee is grateful. Krishna, it is by your mercy that it is you gave me some ability, you gave me some opportunity, and that's how I have been able to do some things in life. And I am grateful to you. So material well-being can remind a devotee of Krishna and can bring a devotee closer to Krishna. That is possible. Now, it is also possible that sometimes our material life may get disrupted. It may get not just disrupted but even devastated. But within that, a devotee is graceful. Not grateful at this point. It's very difficult to be grateful when everything is going wrong. When things are going wrong. But we can be graceful. Graceful means that yes, there is some plan of Krishna and I am graceful that this is happening and that Krishna is with me. So a devotee does not leave Krishna in such a situation. So, many of you know that I have polio, I need crutches for walking. So when I was 1, my mother took me to a clinic. We were staying in a small town in Maharashtra in India. He took me to a clinic to get a polio vaccine. And that particular clinic had a power outage the previous night because it was a small town and because of the power outage, the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept had got heated. And neither the attendant nor the doctor noticed that. Because of the excessive heat, the germs in the vaccine multiplied. And when that vaccine was given to me, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of this, but I was told that I was just learning to walk and I fell down and I could not walk normally thereafter. But my first memory of this was when I was about 2.5 or 3, and a distant relative had come to our home, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." Now, I don't know why she said that, whether it was she observed something in me or it was her hope, her prayer, her confidence. But somehow that part stayed with me. Not the God part, that came later, but initially the intellectually part stayed with me. And then, basically as I moved through, I soon realized I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. So a part of me felt that this is unfair. Why did I end up with this physical disability? What had I done to deserve this? But then when I started studying, I noticed that I could remember quickly, I could read fast, I could articulate well. And then somewhere at the back of my mind it settled that, okay, what had I done to deserve this intellectual ability either? So life is unfair, but in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means in some areas we get worse than what we deserve, and in some areas we get better than what we deserve. So if we are to be graceful, we can look at all the way life is going wrong in our life, then it's not going to be possible to be graceful. But even when life is going wrong in some areas, there are some areas in which it is right, it is going on well. At least we have the opportunity to practice bhakti. That is itself good. When Prabhupada came to America, at that time, the song that he composed, Markine Bhagavad Dharma, the first line in that song is, Boro Krupa Koile Krishna Adhamera Prati. My Lord, you have been very merciful to me. Now, if you look at that situation, Srila Prabhupada is old. He's almost 70. Generally, many people by the year 45, 50, 55, they start getting what is called a midlife crisis. Because you look back at life and see, what have I achieved? Very few people actually achieve their dreams. But for most people, the question comes, what I achieved, is it good enough? Or is it less than how less is it? And people start feeling that, what do I have to show for my life till now? If we look at Srila Prabhupada, what did he have to show? His own family did not really take up serious bhakti. They were pious people. But then he had tried to preach in India. Then no institution had started. They had no followers. He had no money. Yes, he had Bhagavatam. But beyond that, he didn't really have that much to show. And then Prabhupada had come to America, and on the way, he had got heart attacks. And he said, where is the mercy of Krishna? But what was Prabhupada saying, thinking about at that time? That my Guru Maharaj had told me to share Krishna Bhakti in the Western world. At last, at the fag end of my life, I have the opportunity to share it Bhakti right now. And for that opportunity, I am grateful. So, we can be graceful by looking at what is good in our life. Now, if there is material growth, but there is no spiritual growth, if we are not going closer to Krishna, if we are not remembering Krishna, then we will become prideful. Whatever we achieve, we will become very proud. It's like a devotee, he is grateful that Krishna has a plan for me. I am a part of Krishna's team. Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhutaha Sanatanaha. Sanatana means that we are always parts of Krishna. That means we are always parts of Krishna's team. Krishna always has a part for us. So a devotee feels grateful that I am a part of Krishna's team. But a materialistic person, even if they might be somewhat pious, that person thinks Krishna is lucky to have me on his team. That is the idea of being prideful. I was in California, I saw a young man, he was wearing a t-shirt in a college. He said, I was an atheist till I discovered I was God. So, we become prideful if we grow materially but not spiritually. Then, if there's not neither, then we become bitter, we become resentful. So, for us as devotees, whatever happens, we don't want to be in either of these two quadrants. We would like to be in the top two quadrants. That if we are able to balance our various aspects of life and we are growing materially and we are growing spiritually, that's wonderful, we can be grateful. But even if we are not able to balance and some things go wrong, we don't want to go further wrong by going away from Krishna. So, the key principle in balancing is that when we want to balance, it is that Krishna has a plan for us. And if we stay connected with Krishna, even if things seem chaotic right now, things will become clearer with time. We just stay connected with Krishna. A stay connection with Krishna is not just passive. Like I talked that, we also need to see what kind of problems we are facing and how we deal with the problems. But the most important point to understand is that for Krishna, our material life and our spiritual life are not separate. Just like for Krishna, Yogamaya and Mahamaya are not separate. Now for us, should we consider, this is the last point I'll discuss and I'll continue our discussion tomorrow. So should we consider our material life and spiritual life as separate or not as not separate? Not separate? Okay, let's look at this. We are looking at the relationship between material and spiritual life. So, two extremes could be. One side is the other, they're completely different. And the other is that they are totally the same. So now if we say my material life and spiritual life are entirely the same. So now, what does that mean practically? Many people use it to mean, have any of you heard this saying, work is worship? Yeah. So now, when people say work is worship, there's a mistranslation of the Bhagavad Gita's verse that Swakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Swakarmanatam abhyarcha means that Krishna is telling, through your work, worship me. Krishna is not saying work is worship. When somebody says, when people say work is worship, what that means is that do only work, there is no need to worship. That is their idea, work is worship. No, that doesn't have to be always the idea, but that is the idea. So if work itself is worship intrinsically, then whose work is worship? Is a beggar's work worship? Is a robber's work worship? Is a contract killer's work worship? We can't say work itself is worship. Work needs to be done in a mood of worship. Say, okay, my material and spiritual life is no different. Okay, in my home I have a temple and Krishna is present in my home temple, so there's no need for me to go to temple. My family members are all devotees, so I have devotee association at home itself. I don't need to go and associate with devotees. Now the thing is that yes, our family members may be devotees and we have devotee association. But the thing is that when we are the family members, how much do we see them as Krishna's devotees and how much do we see them as our family members? How much is the remembrance of Krishna there? That is important. So if we consider both as same, then what will happen is there will be stagnation in our spiritual life. We will not grow because we will not really be remembering Krishna. Now, if we consider both as completely separate, that material and spiritual life, they go in completely opposite directions. If we consider that way, then we will be torn. There will be fragmentation in our life. That means we'll feel fragmented. Material life says do this, spiritual life says do the opposite. What am I supposed to do? I have to do both things. We feel as if we're stretched and pulled and pulled and pulled. And we'll just collapse by that. So the understanding is that it is too spiritual through material. It is not that material life and spiritual life are the same. In material life, there are many different aspects. So, how many of you are Asians? Okay, almost. Okay, before you came to America, how many of you, some of you might have, some children might have been born in America, so that question will not apply to you, but how many of you before you came to America, when you were in India, how many of you thought you are Asians? We live in a continent called Asia, but it's such a large category. In Asia, there are Filipinos, there are Japanese, there are Chinese, there are Middle East people. It's a valid category, but it's not a very useful category. Isn't it? So, we may say that there's not only like, I'm Indian, I'm a South Indian. I'm not a South Indian, I'm a Kannada, I'm not a Telugu. So like that, there is so much specific categorization might be there. So when we say through spiritual through the material, there are two ways of looking at this. So this is a different point I'm making over here. That we can see this is spiritual life and this is material life. And these two are different categories. However, there is spiritual life and then there is in material life, there is sattva, rajas and tamas. So, spiritual, sattva is the mode of goodness, rajas is what Srila Prabhupada translates as mode of passion, then there's tamas. Now, if we feel that these two are separate, either I go here or I go here. That's the choice. But actually, if we are here, it is, yes, through sattva, we can go towards Krishna. Let's put it this way. That through sattva, we can go steadily towards Krishna. Sattva is basically pro-spiritual or pro-devotional. Then now through rajas, also we can go towards Krishna, but it is a little more difficult. Rajas is non-spiritual. Let's use the word spiritual over here. Sattva is pro-spiritual, rajas is non-spiritual. Now through tamas also we can go toward Krishna. But it is very difficult. Tamas is almost anti-spiritual. There's a British thinker who said that the taste of wine is the proof that God loves us. His idea was that if God did not exist and if a loving God did not exist, how could something as tasty as wine exist? Now, there are so many tasty things in the world. Why think of wine? Now, how many people who drink wine or beer or whiskey or whatever, they think, oh, God loves me, that's why this wine is tasty. Now, it may be remotely possible, but it is extremely rare. So, Srila Prabhupada says in his book On the Way to Krishna that if somebody cannot give up drinking alcohol, if they remember that even this addictive taste of alcohol that is coming, it is coming from Krishna. If they remember that, then one day they will become a devotee. Now, Prabhupada is not saying by drinking alcohol they will become a devotee. It is by remembering Krishna. So, even through tamas, somebody can move toward Krishna. But it is very difficult. So, when we are talking about material and spiritual lives, that sattva, rajas, tamas, within material life itself there are categories. Like I said, Asian is a very large category. And it is not a very helpful category. So, from a functional perspective, from our day-to-day functional perspective, material is a very big category. So, when you say material life and spiritual life, In material there can be sattva, there can be rajas, and there can be tamas. And if you understand, we have this nuanced attitude toward material life, then what is sattvic? Say if we are going to office, or our children are going to school. Now we may want to tell our children associate with devotees only. But in school there are no devotees. Then what are we going to do? Now are we going to be completely aloof from everyone else? No, we do need to socialize to some extent. So the idea is that even within our social circles, we may look at who is relatively sattvic, who is relatively rajasic, who is relatively tamasic. Now we say everybody eats meat, everybody drinks, so everybody is tamasic. Well, that's a bit of an oversimplification. That particular behavior, that particular action may be tamasic. Not maybe, it is tamasic. But that does not mean that particular action defines the entire person. That particular action does not define the entire person. Somebody might be eating meat in their diet, but they may be kind, they may be polite, they may love nature, they may be otherwise quite disciplined in their lives. So of course that tamasic element might be there, but otherwise they might be sattvic in their lives. Somebody might be drinking, but that's just a part of their culture and their habit. They're not drunkards or being alcoholics. So we can see that even in the social circles that we have, who is where in our life. That if somebody is sattvic, then we can connect with them more. They may not be necessarily interested in Krishna, but they are connected with various things in their life, which we can connect with them at a sattvic level. They may be interested in nature, they may be interested in environment, they may be interested in maybe improving health, natural living, maybe eating healthy foods, whatever. There are so many things which are sattvic which we can connect with. I mean, rajasic also is not necessarily a bad thing. Rajasic means some people are interested in doing their work. They want to be efficient, they want to be effective, they want to be successful. And even among people who are not devotees, materialistic, it's that they are also aware that there are certain habits which are destructive. I don't want to get into the habits. They're rajasic, they want material success, but now we may work with them and we might also function quite well with them. Now, can their association affect us? Of course it can affect us. But does it have to affect us? It depends on us. It depends on how we are connected with Krishna. So when we talk about balancing, one aspect of balancing is how do we relate with people. So when we are relating with people, don't have that attitude of black and white. That everybody who is not practicing bhakti is a non-devotee. And because they're non-devotee, they're all materialistic and they're all equally materialistic. To consider everybody, like to consider every devotee to be the same or every non-devotee to be the same, that is actually Mayavad. Because everyone is an individual. It may not be philosophical Mayavad, but it is psychological Mayavad. At a psychological level, we are just looking at everything equally. So people are different. And when we are dealing with our extended family, with our family, relatives, social circles, when we have to balance. So this particular understanding is sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. If you understand this, then in our relationships, it will be relatively easier to balance. So I'll talk about how to balance tomorrow, but I'll make one principle over here, which I'll be elaborating tomorrow. If this is Krishna, then this is me. And this is my family. It could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be a parent, whoever it is. So now this is our relationship with Krishna. This is one. Now this is our relationship with them, that is 2. And then this is their relationship with Krishna, that is 3. So now we may say they have no relationship with Krishna. They are not interested in bhakti. Well, they may have no relationship with Krishna, but Krishna has a relationship with them. Krishna is present in everyone's heart. So the best situation is where, Prabhupada said one of the purposes of ISKCON is that we all come closer to each other and we come closer to Krishna, the prime entity. That means we come closer, 1 becomes stronger, 3 becomes stronger, 2 also becomes stronger. This is the best situation. But if this does not happen, then what do? Then we consider 1 as important, 2 also as significantly important. And I'll explain why in tomorrow's session. But 3 is between that person and Krishna. So basically, one is my sadhana. That our maintaining, that we should have some time for our Krishna bhakti, that is something which is our sadhana. Now, two is our seva. That, okay, by Krishna's arrangement, I am in this family. By Krishna's arrangement, I am among these particular relatives. That let me act in a mood of service. Now, act in a mood of service doesn't mean we let other people walk over us or abuse us or something like that, but we have a basic mood of service over there. And three is our sharanagati. It is whether they take up bhakti or not, that is between that person and Krishna. We cannot control that. So, if we consider one, we have this particular hierarchy in which we function, then we'll find that gradually things will start improving. The best situation is what happens is, if one leads to two becoming better. That means because of our bhakti, we become more calm, we become more understanding, we become more tolerant. And the other person starts seeing that, okay, you have become a better husband, you have become a better wife, you have become a better son, better daughter, better sibling, better friend, whatever it is. When they see that, that will inspire them to start practicing bhakti. So what happens is, if our one leads to two becoming better, then that two will lead to three becoming better. But if our one leads to two becoming worse, that means, you are a materialistic person, I don't care for you now. So then what that will lead to is, three will become worse. So if we are practicing our bhakti properly, when Srila Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he later told his disciple that if I had met him just 1 year before, then if I had not been married, I would have immediately joined as a full-time brahmachari in the temple. But he said, now I am married, I have a family, I had a wife, I had a child. It would have been unfair for them if I had renounced. So Prabhupada took that responsibility, and by Krishna's arrangement, Prabhupada gained a wealth of experience, and in the last years of his life, Krishna brought extraordinary success for Prabhupada. But Prabhupada also took care of his family responsibilities. Now, many times what we do is, I said about there is some distress is avoidable. That is self-created distress. Sometimes what we do is, we make three the most important. And then two becomes next important. And one becomes the least important. Means what is mean? We force the other person, come on, come to the temple. Do this chanting, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you see, whenever we force someone to do something, what happens is, that creates a strain in the relationship. So when in three there is force, then what happens is, in two there is a strain. Because you are asking me to do so much. Worst thing what happens is, that we do less for that person and we expect more from that person. Maybe we used to go out for some parties or some movies or this or that. I'm not saying we should go now. That's not my point over here. But what we were doing in that relationship, we stopped doing that. And then we expect you do this and you do this and you do this. And what happens is, then that creates a strain. And when there is a strain, then this leads to a distraction in one. If there is a tense atmosphere in our home, if there is a hot war or even a cold war, what happens is, if in the home there is a cold war, then our bhakti, our mind will not stay very cool. And then we will not be able to connect with Krishna. We sit down to chant Hare Krishna. Why did this person say like this? Why did I say like that? If only this had happened, if only that had happened. We will not be able to function. So see that whatever place we are placed in, it is a part of Krishna's plan for us. It is not outside the ambit of Krishna. So balancing material and spiritual life means that spiritual life is, I talked about, should we separate the two? Should we unite the two? Should we treat the two as identical? Well, we can't treat the two as identical, because we do need time for exclusively connecting with Krishna. So one is important. But that does not mean two is completely materialistic. Two is our relationship with a family member. That is also by some higher arrangement. That is also a part of Krishna's plan. And we do that in a mood of service to Krishna. And when we do that, gradually we'll start seeing that changes will happen. Especially if we are not neglectful, at least the extra tension and agitation that is there in life, that will start decreasing. So, by our negligence, sometimes we may end up making things worse. And balancing our life means at least avoiding that avoidable distress that comes. Because we neglect some things in our life. So, we see whatever roles we are playing as a service. And by that, we increase it, and we maximize the chances of helping others also come closer to Krishna. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our topic was of balancing material and spiritual life. So within that, I talked about I said the structure we'll be talking about is that there are problems. That was the first part I discussed today. Tomorrow I'll be discussing about purpose in the morning and process in the third part. So the problems, why does the problem of balance come up? So I talked about it is because of three kinds of problems could be there. What are the three kinds anyone remembers? Inevitable problems. That is, for example, this world is that there's old age, disease, death. Inevitable problem is that we all have too many things to do. Inevitable is that there is time poverty. So even if we are not practicing bhakti, still we would have time poverty. That's just the nature of life. So this we need to learn to is tolerance. Then A was avoidable problems. Avoidable is because of our own negligence, we talked about, we sometimes rationalize. When we tell rationalize, we tell rationalize. So what should we do about this? Intelligence. So we'll be learning how to equip our intelligence to deal with this. So one aspect we discussed today, but we'll be discussing more. And then third was strengthening. That by going through these problems, we become stronger, we become wiser. So for this we need forbearance. Forbearance is patience, determination, resilience. So now strengthening problems are that actually when we are balancing, we see that balance, it is a part of Krishna's plan for us. So here we discussed how the godless view is life is all about what is done by me and what is done to me. And this leaves us either resentful or insecure. Resentful about what is happening to us or insecure about what is being done by us. So we don't want to be in this situation. So our understanding is that whatever is happening in my life, that it is in some way a part of Krishna's plan. So what I am doing, it is a part of Krishna's plan. What is done to me, that is also a part of Krishna's plan. It is God, not God intended, but God filtered. And sometimes that means it could be intention, what Krishna wants to happen, but it can also be permission. Krishna has allowed it to happen. So, with this understanding, then we discussed how to go about balancing our roles. So, I talked about the relationship. So, within the problems, what is the cause of the problems? And then the material spiritual life relationship we discussed in terms of two diagrams mainly. One was this 4 quadrants. There can be material growth and spiritual growth. So, if both are there, how can we be? Grateful. If neither is there, then okay. If one is only okay. If spiritual growth is there, material growth is not there, then we can be graceful. We can see that what is still good in my life. These things are bad, but Krishna has a plan, and some things are good. We discussed about Prabhupada. We discussed life may be unfair, but in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Then here we discuss if only one thing is going right, then we may be prideful. We will become arrogant. Krishna is lucky to have me in his team. And otherwise we become resentful. Everything is wrong in my life. Nothing is right. So now, this is in terms of what results in our life. But then we discussed how do we approach it in our life. So I talked about that we consider material spiritual life relationship, material and spiritual. One extreme is to say they're totally different, or they're totally the same. Now if you consider it's all same, I say my family members are devotees, so this is all the devotee association that I need. Then we will actually not grow, because the remembrance of Krishna will not be there, stagnation will be there. But if he is completely different, then what will happen? Fragmentation will be there. So we will feel torn apart. So the way we avoid this is, we see that it is too spiritual through material. So through material means, in the material, we see that there is sattva, rajas and tamas. There is spiritual and there is sattva, rajas and tamas. And it is, we can go through sattva very nicely towards Krishna. Through rajas also we can go to some degree towards Krishna. Through tamas, it is very difficult to go towards Krishna. So, it's rather than rejecting something as material, we try to see, accept the sattva and utilize the rajas as much as we can and try to avoid the tamas. And in terms of relationship, we are trying to balance, discuss that if I am here and my family is here, then we try to have it in such a way that all three are going together nicely. All three are going, but if that is not happening, then we keep 1, 2 and 3. 1 as most important, that is our sadhana. We make sure some time for that. We are going toward the spiritual. But sattva means that we see that this is our seva. And what they do in their relationship to Krishna, that we leave as sharanagati. That it is up to, it is between them and Krishna, how they take it. So if we have this attitude, then we will find that at least the avoidable distress that is there, which comes because of our negligence, that can be minimized. And so in tomorrow's session, I'll be talking about the purpose, how artha and paramartha can be both made to go together, and what does it mean. And in the last session, I'll talk about processes that, when do we prioritize some, say, material life, when do we prioritize spiritual life. Can material life be prioritized more than spiritual life? Can there be variable levels of practice? If there are variable levels, when does it become compromise? That we'll discuss in third session. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So let us conclude by offering this prayer to Krishna once again. My dear Lord, let my plans not blind me to your plan. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
His Grace Chaitanya Prabhu ki.
Thank you very much. We decide, do we have time?
For a couple of questions. It's 9 o'clock, so probably we can take 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, sure. 1 or 2 questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, very wonderful class. I just want to understand my understanding from the today's class basically, whether what I understood from the fourth quarter, what we discussed about it, is this something, the two things are both spiritual path and the material path. They both go together in the parallel way. I don't think they can meet together. Can we consider that way? They are going parallel, and that both has to go together, then only we can achieve the success in our life.
Well, I would say second is necessary. Like Sudama was very poor. Was he a lesser of a devotee before he got all the wealth from Krishna? No, he was still a great devotee. Now, there are some devotees who may live lifelong in poverty only. They never become wealthy or powerful or famous or whatever. So, it's not that everybody has to grow materially to attain perfection in life. I'll talk more about this tomorrow. But without material growth, one will not have much influence in the world. So some level of influence is required. If it's required, material growth is required. Now, are there two parallel tracks? Well, it depends on how you envision it. It's like if you say Yudhishthira Maharaj, he performed the Rajasuya Yajna. And he became the emperor of the world. He exercised a lot to get that material growth. But then he used that to do the Agra Puja of Krishna, to declare that Krishna is the foremost person in the whole world. So he used his material fame and position to glorify Krishna to the world. So material growth can be used for spiritual growth. So is it that there are two parallel tracks? Well, in terms of our life, yes. That we need some time for material activities and some time for spiritual activities. In that sense, we can say it's parallel. But it is not necessary that we will grow at the equal pace in both areas. So it's not like a train which goes on two tracks. And so material life and spiritual life. You could say there are two tracks of a train. We are souls, but we are in the body. So we have to take care of our body. In that sense, in this lifetime, there are two rails of a track. But whether growth will happen at the same pace in both, that is not necessary. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for being here, and it was wonderful class. Prabhuji, you said that being in tamas, a person can go to the Krishna. So
but it's remote. I said it's very, very difficult. I said I give.
I just wanted to understand that if a person is in tamas gun, then how? Because he is creating his karma to for the next life. Then how he can transit to the Krishna?
Okay. So I was not talking about a person in tamas. So your question is valid, but to clarify, I was not talking about a person in tamas. What I was saying is that in our material life, there may be certain activities and certain people who are in sattva, certain people are in rajas, certain people are in tamas. Now, through connecting with everyone, we can go toward Krishna. But through connecting with a tamasic person or doing a job which is very tamasic, it may be very difficult to go toward Krishna. So that was what I was talking about. Now your question is specifically about if somebody is in tamas. See, in general, spiritual life can be started from anywhere. Like somebody might be alcoholic, they might be on the streets, and some devotees are doing kirtan, they join the kirtan. They also experience some spiritual joy. So there are two visions of the relationship between the modes and bhakti. So bhakti is here, and one vision is that sattva, rajas and tamas, they are all in the material domain. And from sattva one can come to Krishna, from rajas one can come to Krishna, from tamas one can come to Krishna. So in the Bhagavatam, the story of Kardam Muni is where is in sattva and he comes towards Krishna. The story of Dhruva, he comes for a kingdom. That is, he rajas. And he comes towards Krishna. Now the story of Rutrasur, at least in this life, he's a demon. He's acting in Tamoguna, he's trying to destroy the Devatas. But from there also he can come to Krishna. So in one sense, with respect to starting, anybody from anywhere can connect with Krishna. However, sattva has a characteristic of sustaining. So if one is to sustain the practice of bhakti, one needs a certain level of sattva guna. So in that sense, we could say, for a devotee, you can start from anywhere. But the normal conception is like a linear conception. We are from tamas, we come to rajas and we come to sattva. This is also a valid conception. But the idea is this, if somebody is in tamas, they may start, but for them to sustain, if somebody is in tamas also, to go along this journey, they need a certain level of sattva. So, now where will that sattva come from? Sometimes it can come from association, sometimes it can come from adopting a particular kind of lifestyle. So, otherwise they will not be able to sustain it. So, it is as devotees our responsibility to try to share Krishna Bhakti with everyone, to give the opportunity for Krishna Bhakti to everyone. And that means that we may even go to places where there is a bit of a tamas. to try to share Krishna Bhakti over there. So when you go on Rath Yatras, we may go on the street. Sometimes in some cities, people go on the beaches to do Rath Yatra. Now there, people might be completely sensual mood, and not just Rajasic, but Tamasic mood might also be there. But there, devotees go and do Kirtan. We have to be careful we don't go into Tamas. But we can give them the opportunity to come towards Krishna. But eventually, for them to sustain, they will need to have some level of Sattva. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay, one last question. Stop this.
Okay. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. आपने जो कृष्ण के डायरेक्ट इन्वॉल्व में बताया, मैया दक्षिण प्रकृति, ये श्लोक भी है, अनुमंता ये भी है, तो और सर डिपार्टमेंट का क्या काम है फिर? जैसे रहते हैं ना इंद्र चंद्र, एमा डिपार्टमेंट, मृत्यु डिपार्टमेंट, सबका काम तो यहाँ नहीं दिखाई पड़ रहा है, क्योंकि आप जो बता रहे हैं कि कृष्ण के साइड डायरेक्ट सब चीज़ करते हैं, तो फिर भी ये डिपार्टमेंट क्यों है? क्या कनेक्शन है, क्या काम है उनका?
Okay, so I'll answer in English. Is that okay? Okay, so I don't think I said Krishna is directly controlling everything. So, see, Krishna is the ultimate controller. Now, Krishna can use many different instruments for different purposes. Krishna can give engagement to different people. The Devatas have dual roles. Now, the Devatas, generally speaking, the Devatas, they at one level are administrators. And that is the role we focus on generally. That now they play the role of administrators, but they are also playing the role of intermediate objects of worship. What Krishna does is, for those who are not ready to worship him right now, Krishna provides them an intermediate object. It's like, if you can't worship me in the Abrahamic religions, either it's like you worship a particular conception of God, you accept Jesus as Savior, you accept Allah. If you're not doing that, then you're going to go to hell. So the exclusivist, this is the only God you have to worship, and thou shalt not worship any false God. That's the idea. And so exclusivists say this is the only God you can worship. There are exclusivists and there are extremists. So exclusivists say if you don't worship this God, you're going to go to hell. Extremists are actually kinder. They say, anyway you're going to go to hell, why delay it? We will help you get there faster. So the idea is that Krishna is not that kind of God. Krishna doesn't say if you don't worship me, you'll go to hell. So in the Vedic tradition, hell is not for non-believers. Hell is for wrongdoers. Krishna doesn't say just because you're a non-devotee, you'll go to hell. Krishna says, Trividham narkasyedam dwaram nashanam atmana. If somebody is uncontrolled in their lust, anger or greed, that's what will take them to hell. So the point is, if somebody can't worship Krishna, Krishna says, you can worship these other devatas. And these devatas also have powers. And they can give some fruits. Now ultimately, it is Krishna who is giving the fruits. But the system of devata worship is actually a demonstration of how accommodating Krishna is. So the example in the Old Testament is that there's a wealthy landlord and his son goes away from his home. And then when the son comes back, the father welcomes him and celebrates his return. So that's the idea that even when we turn away from God and we go back to God, God welcomes us. But in the Vedic tradition, it is not just that God is waiting in the spiritual world to welcome us back. No, Krishna is working to help us come back to him. So the idea is, if there's a king and the prince has left the kingdom for some reason. Now, what does the king do? Maybe the prince is not, there's some relationship issue, I don't want to be with my father. Then the father sends a minister. He says, the minister, you engage my son. And rather than that person, the prince working under somebody else, the prince starts working under the minister. Now, whatever salary the minister is giving to the prince, the king only is giving to the minister. So in that sense, the devatas are like the ministers. So now the ministers are more powerful at that particular point than the prince. But the ministers are not more powerful than the king. But the idea is, when the prince is not ready to come back to the father, then there is the minister as the intermediary that is available. So Krishna says, Mayaiva vihitan hitan. It is I who give power to the devatas so that they can bless their worshippers. So Krishna, the king sends the minister so that the prince can be brought closer to home. Even if the prince is not ready to come home, at least stay connected with home. Okay? So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanande.
Sanjeev, please, if you can let us know about this wonderful book also, Gita for the CEO.
Thank you. So the prayers book which many of you saw, there are 122 prayers in that, and there are prayers for all occasions. If you're feeling lost and directionless in life, if you're feeling lonely and misunderstood, if you're feeling spiritually dry and disconnected from Krishna, if you're feeling your cravings rising too much and becoming uncontrollable, there are prayers for all occasions. Many devotees also, so you can just look at the table of contents and see whichever your emotional need is at that time, and there's a prayer for that. Many devotees told me that this is also helping them a lot in their chanting. Just look at a picture of Krishna, pray, read the prayer, and then focus on chanting. So like we hear Japa talk, so you can Japa reading you can do. And this is as Gita for the CEO. Nowadays in the corporate world, there's a lot of interest in learning some life lessons and leadership lessons from ancient texts. So from Greece, Stoicism has become very popular. From Japan, Ikigai is becoming popular. So HarperCollins is one of the biggest publishers in the world. So they asked me to write on the Gita from that perspective. So I have taken 10 principles from the Gita, and it's like I was drawing some simple diagrams. So there are illustrations depicting the various concepts. And now I also presented the Gita as a conversation between two people, both in the corporate world, one who knows the Gita, one who wants to know the Gita. And much of what I talked about today about is work worship, but how can we have an affirmative? Is the Gita's teaching pessimistic? Many of the points that I discussed today are explained in this book. And there is also a section on, there are many sections which are very practical, relevant. There's a section on tapping the power of speech. Why don't people listen to us? How can we ensure that they understand and listen? How can we ensure that when the failures and setbacks in life, we don't lose heart? How can we find our nature and our purpose so that we can succeed in professional life also? This is not just for CEOs, it is for anyone in any leadership role, formal or informal. Ultimately, each one of us is meant to be a CEO of our own life. So both these books are available, and I'll be here for some time in case if you have any questions or if you'd like to have the book signed. Thank you so much. Great.
Yeah, just find me if you want to take any of these books. And those who have this Bhagavad Gita book, please put that in the box if you're not taking it, so that I have proper count with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So big thank you to His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu for a very nice class. And we had a last minute change of topic, but I think it was something that has been asked for by many of you. So I was very happy that that is the topic that came up. And it is wonderful that we're going to be continuing this for the next 2 days. So tomorrow morning we have a home program at Umesh Prabhu and Smita Mataji's home. If you have not RSVP'd, please RSVP if you are coming. And then in the evening we have a program at Pooja Mataji and Praveen Sahu's home. So again, if you're not RSVP'd, please RSVP to them so they can make appropriate prasadam arrangements. And unfortunately this time Prabhu is not going to be here on Sunday, but this coming Sunday we are going to conclude our Vaishnava Sadachar series. So please make sure that you join us on Sunday. So we are not only going to have the last class of the Vaishnava Sadachar series that we've been following for the last 7 or 8 weeks, but we are also going to summarize everything. So if you've missed any, if you did not come to any, it still will be a valuable class for you, because we'll do the last class. His Grace Hare Narayan Prabhu was supposed to give the last class, and because he had to go to India for a couple of reasons, Shyama Mohini Mataji is going to give the class. So she's going to cover his class as well as the summary of the rest of the classes. So please join us on Sunday for the Sunday feast class for that. But meanwhile, tomorrow we have Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and we are very sad that he's not going to be here for the Sunday feast class, but hopefully next year we'll have a program at the temple somehow. And we are very grateful to you, Prabhu. You know, you have a very, very busy schedule, and you still made time for us. It makes a lot, it means a lot to us. And I'm amazed that you are, writing all these books with all your busy schedules. And if you notice, this is just volume 1. He's only got to chapter 6, I think,
Yeah.
So he still has, quite a lot, 12 chapters to go. So are you planning on 3 volumes?
Yeah, so I want to make it 366 meditations for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So 122 in each book. That's the plan.
That's what I figured. So we have 2 more volumes to go. And I hope that, we'll have Prabhu come back. And as I say, give us a Sunday class. So one program at the temple is my request. But meanwhile, a big thank you to Manmohan, Shri Jagannath Prabhu, and Madhumai Shri Lakshmi Devidasi for hosting today's program. Please give them a big round of applause. I know you all must be hungry, but a very, very big round of applause for Chaitanya Charan Prabhu for the wonderful class. And I'd also like to thank Shiji Priya Devidasi and Ishwara Gauranga Prabhu for hosting Prabhu for the 2 days. Thank you so much. And last but not least, a big thank you to you all for coming and attending, because without you, we cannot have any programs. So a big round of applause to you all as well. Thank you so much. We are going to recite the Prasadam prayers, and then we'll serve Prasadam. Did I leave anything out? No? Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone.
महाप्रसादे गोविंदे नमो ब्राह्मणे वैष्णवे स्वल्पतुल्यवतं राजन् विश्वासो न जायते शरीरा विद्याजा योदेन्द्रियाता है काल जीवे फैले विशेषाग्रे कारण मध्ये जीवाहति लोभ माया सुधर्मति ताके जिता कठिन संसारे कृष्णा बड़ा दयामय करी बारे जीवा जाए सौ प्रसाद अन्न दिलो भाई से अनामृता पाओ श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गुण गाओ प्रेमी दाखी चैतन्य निताई जय निमाई जय निताई जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। भगवत महाप्रसादम की, शीला प्रभुपाद की।
चलो ठीक है, फिलहाल I'll go with this as a
This question is half a long time. I mean, this thing is troubling. The question. I have written the question properly, and I have right now. Oh, sure. Yeah, I will talk later.